Have you ever stopped to think about why, after the age of 80, so many lives are lost to only a handful of conditions? It's fascinating and sobering because once someone reaches this stage of life, the outcomes can look very different. Some older adults remain impressively sharp, energetic, and independent well into their later years, while others quickly run into health issues that strip away their confidence and strength. The real difference usually comes down to a small set of powerful causes, factors that work quietly in the background, deciding who continues to thrive and who becomes more fragile. Today, we'll be looking closely at the 8 most common causes of death after 80. Together, they account for nearly 99% of the lives lost in this age group. And let me be clear, these aren't guesses, old myths, or scare tactics. They are patterns doctors and researchers have observed again and again in seniors across the world. Stick with me until the end, because I can almost guarantee that at least one of these causes will surprise you. You may even recognize risks hiding in your own daily life that are far more important than you realized. Once you know what they are, you'll have a clearer picture of where you stand and what steps you can take to protect your independence and well-being. So let's dive in. One of the leading culprits after 80 is heart disease, and honestly, it isn't hard to see why. As the years pile up, the heart muscle tends to stiffen, the blood vessels lose their natural flexibility, and fatty plaque slowly clogs the arteries. Put all of that together, and the risks rise sharply: sudden heart attacks, heart failure, dangerous rhythm problems, even strokes. To put it into perspective, imagine 2 men, both 82 years old. George makes time for a daily walk, pays attention to his doctor's guidance on blood pressure, and eats foods that support his heart. Because of those habits, he still climbs stairs with ease and gets through his daily chores without gasping for air. William, however, tells a different story. Once active, he now struggles with shortness of breath and chest tightness from even simple tasks. He skips doctor appointments, often forgets or ignores his medications, and doesn't make the healthiest food choices. The contrast between George and William makes it clear. George's steady habits keep his circulation strong, while William's neglect leaves him exposed to the very problems that make cardiovascular disease the #1 killer at this age. And the science behind it is pretty straightforward. Narrow arteries force the heart to pump harder, which weakens the muscle over time. That constant strain sets the stage for cardiac arrest, strokes, or heart failure. But here's the encouraging part: even after 80, you can still influence your heart health. Keeping blood pressure steady, managing cholesterol, and moving your body daily, even in small ways, can make a real difference. Ask yourself this: do you find yourself winded from light activity? Do you feel chest tightness or unusual fatigue that wasn't there before? Those could be red flags, signals from your body that should never be brushed aside. The good news is that there are simple, practical steps you can begin right away. A brisk 10 to 15-minute walk each day can keep your circulation flowing. Taking your medications as prescribed is vital. Skipping doses puts unnecessary stress on your heart. Filling your plate with more fruits, vegetables, and whole grains while cutting back on heavy, fatty foods can also ease the load on your arteries. And perhaps most importantly, keep up with regular checkups. Doctors can often spot silent problems, like irregular rhythms or hidden blockages, before they turn into tragedies. Heart disease may top the list of causes of death after 80, but it doesn't have to cut your story short. By listening to your body, making small consistent changes, and respecting the limits of your heart, you can add not just years to your life, but life to your years. Remember, your heart is more than just a pump. It is the foundation of your energy, your independence, and your resilience. Treat it with care, and it can carry you further than you might expect. Another major danger after 80 is sepsis, a severe and often deadly reaction to infection that spreads through the bloodstream. At this stage of life, the immune system no longer fights as strongly, so even small infections that once seemed minor can spiral quickly out of control. Picture 2 men, both 84 years old. Arthur makes a habit of paying attention to infection warning signs, drinks enough water, and takes good care to keep his skin clean and protected. When Arthur came down with a urinary tract infection, it was caught right away and treated before it had the chance to spread. Leonard, on the other hand, tends to ignore warning signs. He uses a catheter without much attention to hygiene and doesn't notice sores developing on his lower back. One day, he suddenly becomes feverish and confused, and by the time help reaches him, the infection has already overwhelmed his system. This contrast shows just how quickly sepsis can take hold. The danger comes from how the body reacts. When bacteria or other germs get inside, the immune system sometimes goes into overdrive, triggering widespread inflammation and, in severe cases, organ failure. For older adults, the most common starting points are urinary tract infections, pneumonia, or skin sores, especially in people who spend long hours sitting or lying in one position. And once sepsis sets in, even the best hospital care may not be enough to undo the damage. But here's the encouraging side: there are many small steps that can lower the risk dramatically. Drinking plenty of fluids helps flush harmful bacteria from the urinary tract. Good skincare and shifting positions often, using cushions or supports, can keep bed sores from forming. Brushing your teeth and caring for your mouth reduces bacteria that could slip into the lungs. Most importantly, treating even minor infections quickly, with a doctor's help, keeps them from spreading further. Think about this for yourself or someone you love. Do you ever ignore frequent urges to urinate, a burning sensation, or fevers that seem to appear out of nowhere? Have you noticed any tender or red spots on the skin that heal more slowly than they should? These little things may not seem urgent, but they are early warning signs, and brushing them aside can be dangerous. Sepsis is frightening because it moves so quietly and so fast. But awareness is your strongest shield. By paying attention to small signals and acting promptly, you protect yourself from one of the most devastating threats of old age. Even after 80, staying alert to your body's changes can mean the difference between a health crisis and continued independence. Now let's turn to another leading cause of death after 80, cancer. Unlike infections, which can appear suddenly, cancer often builds silently over many years. As we age, our cells accumulate tiny changes, and by the time someone reaches their 80s, the odds of those changes turning harmful rise significantly. Picture two men, both 81. Charles makes time for regular screenings, avoids smoking, and takes notice when his body feels different. When he started feeling unusually tired and noticed a change in his bowel habits, he didn't dismiss it. He went to see his doctor. That choice meant his cancer was discovered early, while it was still treatable. Edward, however, had a different approach. He avoided checkups for years, always telling himself that fatigue or weight loss was just part of aging. By the time he finally saw a doctor, the disease had already spread, leaving him with far fewer treatment options. The science behind this is clear. As cells age, errors in their DNA become more common, and the immune system becomes less capable of catching them in time. That's why cancers of the lung, colon, prostate, breast, and even blood-related cancers appear more frequently in advanced age. The tricky part is that early signs are often subtle: weight dropping unexpectedly, bleeding without explanation, a cough that won't go away, or sudden changes in energy levels. These are your body's way of raising a flag, and they should never be ignored. So, what can you do to protect yourself? First, stay current with screenings that still make sense for your age and overall health. Even simple stool tests or imaging can reveal hidden dangers early. Second, take lifestyle choices seriously. If you smoke, quitting now still lowers your risk. If you drink, keep it moderate. Building meals around fruits, vegetables, and lean protein strengthens your defenses, while cutting back on fried and heavily processed foods reduces unnecessary strain. And finally, listen closely to your body. If you notice something out of the ordinary, a cough that lingers, a mole that looks different, or fatigue that won't ease up, don't just chalk it up to getting older. A quick visit to the doctor can buy you precious years of health and independence. Let me ask you this: do you find yourself brushing aside small symptoms, convincing yourself they don't matter? Have you been skipping screenings because you think they're no longer worth it? At this stage of life, asking yourself these questions honestly may be one of the most powerful steps you ever take. Cancer might remain a leading cause of death beyond 80, but the truth is many cases can be managed if they're detected early. Even simple daily habits can go a long way toward prevention. The real goal isn't only to stretch out more years, but to make those years full of energy, clarity, and freedom from the weight of constant illness. Breathing is something we rarely think about. It feels so automatic, but after 80, respiratory illnesses can quietly become one of the most serious threats to survival. Conditions such as chronic bronchitis or emphysema, combined with a weaker immune system, create the perfect opening for infections like pneumonia. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine two women, both 83 years old. Linda makes her lung health a priority. She keeps active, practices simple breathing exercises, and never skips her yearly flu or pneumonia vaccines. She also makes a habit of sitting upright at mealtimes and keeps her chest muscles flexible with light stretching. Patricia, in contrast, often eats while reclining, has trouble swallowing, and tends to delay her vaccinations. When she developed a minor chest infection, it escalated quickly into pneumonia. She ended up hospitalized, dependent on oxygen, and far weaker than before. This contrast highlights an important truth. Lung health cannot be taken for granted in the later decades. As the muscles around the chest weaken and mucus clearance slows down, even a mild infection can overwhelm the lungs. Issues like swallowing problems, acid reflux, or a dry mouth further increase the risk of food or liquid slipping into the airway, triggering aspiration pneumonia. And once a respiratory infection digs in at this age, bouncing back is far more difficult. Sometimes strength is never fully regained. The science behind it is straightforward. Every cell in your body depends on oxygen, and when the lungs can't deliver it, other organs fail in rapid succession. But here's the hopeful part. You can still do a lot to protect your lungs well into your 80s. Vaccines against flu, pneumonia, and other respiratory threats are powerful shields. Keeping your mouth clean and healthy lowers bacteria that might otherwise travel down into the lungs. Sitting upright while eating, drinking enough water, and avoiding heavy meals late at night all reduce aspiration risks. For those living with chronic lung problems, learning the right way to use inhalers and keeping up a simple breathing exercise routine can be the difference between resilience and frailty. So take a moment to reflect. Do you feel out of breath just walking across the room? Do you wake up coughing or find swallowing difficult? Have you kept up with your vaccines? These aren't small issues. They're signs that your lungs may be asking for more care. Respiratory illness is indeed a leading cause of death after 80, but prevention and steady daily habits can greatly cut down the risk. Keep your lungs active, stay protected, and listen closely to the signals your body sends. Breathing well is living well, and guarding your lungs today could grant you many more days filled with comfort, strength, and independence. Now, let's move to another silent but devastating force, dementia. While dementia itself doesn't always directly end a life, its complications often do, which is why it stands among the leading reasons people over 80 pass away. Memory loss and confusion gradually rob an older adult of the ability to meet basic needs, leaving them vulnerable to malnutrition, infections, and accidents. Picture two men, Harold and Thomas, both 85. Harold received his diagnosis early. With his family's help, he put supportive routines in place. Meals were prepared ahead of time, hydration reminders were set up, and daily activities were organized. Thanks to this structure, Harold stayed fairly stable. He still enjoyed outdoor walks, and he maintained enough independence to move about safely. Thomas, however, brushed off the early signs. As his memory declined, he forgot to eat and drink regularly, left the stove on more than once, and missed doses of his medication. Over time, weakness set in, infections piled up, and weight loss strained his body until one severe illness pushed him past the point of recovery. The science here is sobering. The brain doesn't just hold memories, it controls swallowing, balance, and the body's defense mechanisms. When cognitive function weakens, every system in the body is affected. Difficulty swallowing raises the risk of food or liquid entering the lungs, leading to aspiration pneumonia. Forgetting to eat or drink gradually weakens the body, leading to dehydration and frailty. When mobility decreases, the danger of pressure sores and blood clots grows, each one adding to the risk of decline. Any of these complications alone can start a chain reaction that pushes health into a downward spiral. But there is hope. Dementia does not erase the possibility of a meaningful life. Even small, consistent strategies can make a tremendous difference in preserving well-being. Simple daily routines provide structure, ease confusion, and lower stress. Meals that are soft, easy to swallow, and rich in nutrients reduce choking risks and help maintain strength. Caregivers who offer fluids at set times throughout the day protect against the dangers of dehydration. Gentle activity, such as slow walks or seated stretches, keeps blood circulating, supports balance, and helps maintain mobility. Early guidance from doctors and access to community resources also create a safety net, ensuring someone with dementia can remain as secure and engaged as possible. Now, pause and reflect. Have you or someone you love noticed increasing forgetfulness, difficulty swallowing, or unexplained weight loss? Do you sometimes brush these changes aside, thinking they are just part of normal aging? Recognizing the signs early can shape the path of the years to come. Dementia-related complications remind us that health is not just physical, it's deeply tied to memory and the mind. By acknowledging the risks and making steady, thoughtful adjustments, families can reduce suffering and protect dignity. Caring for the brain is, in many ways, caring for the whole person. And even in the later chapters of life, steps can be taken to hold on to independence, safety, and connection for as long as possible. One of the most underestimated threats after 80 doesn't come from disease at all, but from something as simple as a fall. A slip in the bathroom or a stumble on the stairs can result in a hip fracture, and for many seniors, that single event begins a rapid decline. Think of two women, Ruth and Elaine, both 82 years old. Ruth makes balance exercises part of her daily routine, wears sturdy shoes, and keeps her home free of tripping hazards. She feels steady on her feet, and when she does lose balance, she recovers quickly. Elaine, on the other hand, has weaker legs, takes medications that make her lightheaded, and leaves clutter scattered around her home. One evening, she trips over a rug and breaks her hip. Though she undergoes surgery, her recovery is slow, and she never regains the independence she once enjoyed. Within a year, other health problems begin piling up, and her quality of life drops sharply. The science is sobering. As bones lose density and muscles weaken, the ability to recover from a fracture declines. A broken hip is far more than a painful injury. It can lead to long hospital stays, dangerous infections, blood clots, and in many cases, permanent loss of mobility. This downward spiral increases the risk of death significantly. What makes this even more striking is that many falls can be prevented. The risks often hide in plain sight loose rugs, dim lighting, or medications that disrupt balance. The good news is that action can be taken today. Strength and balance exercises, even something as simple as standing on one foot for a few seconds daily, improve stability. Clearing clutter, securing rugs, and installing grab bars in the bathroom create a safer environment. Reviewing medications with a doctor can help identify those that increase dizziness. Adequate protein and vitamin D strengthen bones, while supportive shoes with good traction reduce slips. Now ask yourself, do you feel unsteady when turning quickly? Have you had moments where you nearly fell? Are there parts of your home that feel risky or difficult to navigate? Facing these questions honestly may be what saves your independence. While falls and hip fractures account for a significant share of deaths after 80, they don't have to claim yours. Protecting your balance, strengthening your body, and making your home safer are powerful steps that keep you mobile and in control. Independence is built on movement, and by taking precautions now, you extend both your strength and your life. Imagine joining a supportive community where people share practical safety tips to keep walking confidently. Wouldn't that be empowering? Another major cause of death in the 80s is stroke, a sudden and devastating event that often strikes without warning. A stroke occurs when blood flow to the brain is blocked or when a weakened blood vessel bursts, causing irreversible damage. At this stage of life, the risk is higher because conditions like high blood pressure, diabetes, and irregular heart rhythms become more common and more dangerous. Picture two women, Alice and Dorothy, both 84 years old. Alice visits her doctor regularly, manages her blood pressure, and takes her medication to keep her irregular heartbeat under control. She stays active, practices balance routines, and eats foods that support healthy circulation. Dorothy, however, often skips her prescriptions and ignores frequent headaches and dizziness. One afternoon, she suddenly finds herself unable to speak and weak on one side of her body. By the time she reaches the hospital, the damage is irreversible, leaving her dependent on others for daily care. This contrast shows why stroke is both one of the deadliest and one of the most preventable conditions. The brain relies on a continuous flow of oxygen-rich blood, and even a few minutes without it can cause brain cells to die. The result may be paralysis, memory loss, long-term disability, or death. What makes stroke particularly dangerous is how often its early warnings are brushed aside or mistaken for something minor, until it's far too late. If you suddenly feel numbness on one side of your face, weakness in your arm, or find your speech slurring, those aren't little slips, they're urgent alarms. Doctors often remind us of the acronym FAST: face drooping, arm weakness, speech difficulty, time to call for help. The good news is that, much like with heart disease, there are powerful ways to cut your stroke risk. Keeping your blood pressure in a healthy range is the single most important safeguard. Monitoring your heart rhythm and properly treating atrial fibrillation prevents clots from forming in the first place. Daily movement, even as simple as short walks or gentle stretching, keeps your circulation strong. Choosing foods wisely, such as cutting back on salt and focusing on fresh, whole meals, helps your blood vessels stay flexible and your blood flowing freely. Now ask yourself, do you often feel dizzy? Have unexplained headaches? Notice weakness in your grip or your step? Have you skipped blood pressure checks or ignored medical advice about heart rhythm problems? These aren't scare tactics. They're reminders that prevention is possible at every stage. A stroke can upend your life in an instant, but by taking action today, you may save yourself from a future of dependence or worse. Frailty is another quiet but powerful cause of decline after 80. It isn't a single disease. It's a state where the body becomes so weak that even small stresses, like a minor infection or a brief hospital stay, can set off a downward spiral. Imagine two women, Helen and Martha, both 83 years old. Helen eats balanced, protein-rich meals, takes daily walks with her neighbor, and keeps a small set of hand weights by her chair. Though slower than in her youth, she maintains enough muscle and energy to recover from setbacks. Martha, however, has lost interest in food, skips meals, and spends most of her time sitting. Her muscles shrink, her weight drops, and her stamina fades. So when she catches what should be a mild cold, her body lacks the reserves to fight it off, and the minor illness turns life-threatening. Science explains this clearly. Frailty develops when muscle, nutrition, and energy all decline together, leaving no cushion for the body to bounce back. It often shows up as slow walking, unintentional weight loss, constant fatigue, and frequent illness. Once frailty sets in, the risks of falls, infections, and even organ failure rise sharply. What's most concerning is how easily it's mistaken for just old age, when in fact it's a dangerous condition. But frailty is not inevitable. Even in your 80s, you can rebuild strength and resilience. Start by prioritizing protein at every meal. Foods like eggs, beans, and fish give your muscles what they need to grow. Gentle resistance exercises, whether lifting light weights or using resistance bands, stimulate strength. Drinking enough water keeps your circulation flowing, and small daily movements preserve energy. Staying socially connected also matters. Sharing meals or spending time with others often leads to better eating habits and more activity. Now ask yourself, do your clothes fit looser without trying? Do you tire out from small tasks or find it harder to stand from a chair? These aren't just signs of aging, they may be warnings of frailty. Frailty is the body's way of saying it cannot handle much more stress. The hopeful news is that with steady daily effort, you can rebuild reserves, protect independence, and reclaim vitality. Every protein-packed meal, every short walk, every moment of strength training moves you away from frailty and closer to a stronger tomorrow. Now that you've seen these 8 major causes, take a moment to reflect. After 80, Most deaths can be traced back to cardiovascular disease, stroke, cancer, respiratory illness, dementia complications, falls, sepsis, and frailty. The list sounds overwhelming, but here's the encouraging truth. Many of these are within your control. Your body is still sending signals, and the decisions you make today, whether it's going for a walk, eating a protein-rich meal, or calling your doctor about new symptoms, shape your future. Ask yourself honestly, are you moving through life with strength and confidence, or do you notice subtle shifts that may be warning signs? The uplifting truth is that even small changes bring lasting benefits. Keeping your blood pressure steady, staying up to date on screenings, practicing balance, and paying attention to how you eat and sleep all create a strong foundation. You are not powerless against these 8 causes. You likely have more influence than you realize. Don't wait for a crisis to force change. Start now. Notice your walking speed. Test your grip. Watch your sleep and appetite. Manage your stress and stay connected with the people who matter to you. These daily habits are the true building blocks of longevity. Living longer isn't a mystery. It's the result of consistent care, self-awareness, and determination. Share at least one thing you've learned today with someone else who may need it. Because these small steps can add not only years to your life, but also strength, joy, and meaning to those years.